First, every voice matters. Secondly, it's also about enhancing decision making. Thirdly, language accessibility. And finally, it's also about customer-centric approach.
Hi, and welcome to today's webinar. Really glad to see so many of you for this webinar about rethinking your hybrid meetings with our uniCOS core platform. So today we'll focus on the hybrid meeting experience. The webinar will take around 40 minutes and it's also recorded. So you will find this webinar and all our previous webinars on our website. And stay tuned. We'll also have some polls throughout the webinar. If you stick to the end and fill out all the polls, you also have a chance to win an Amazon gift card. For those of you that don't know Televic, we're a Belgian conference manufacturer and we're actually celebrating our 80th anniversary this year. We've been very known for our business that we do with international institutions, parliaments, council chambers, what we call more formal meeting settings. Settings where it's important to follow a certain procedure. Who can speak at which point in time, agenda management, knowing what you're talking about, voting procedures, multilingual meetings. So within those types of applications, we've always been very successful. Now, with the big push towards hybrids, we see that our solutions are also a perfect fit for more informal meeting spaces, hybrid meeting spaces and collaborative meeting environments. So this is where we changed our product portfolio to also really be successful and relevant for those meeting spaces. So think about hybrid meeting rooms, think about training rooms, etc. So this is a little bit more where we focus our webinar of today and how we can integrate our applications into hybrid meetings to really enhance that experience. Now, obviously, we have a right product portfolio. We have our tagline, our mission is creating better understanding. So it's about hearing and being heard, seen and being seen, right? And we have a complete portfolio for that, both from a discussion point of view, but also conferencing devices, both wired, wireless. We have means for the multilingual applications to also distribute multiple languages to receivers, both IR solutions and our Unite RF solution. And then we also have video-enabled solutions, which we call our multimedia family. And that's where we focus today's webinar. Mainly on the uniCOS core, which we released end of last year, but it's actually a family of multimedia products. So beside our uniCOS core, which is mainly driven around audio, video for hybrid meetings, we also have our Pro, which is more leaning towards those formal meetings where you can see who is speaking, consult the agenda, do voting sessions, etc. Everything we talk about today in terms of video also applies to the Pro units as well. For Pro, we have both tabletops and flush mount devices. And then there's a third element to the uniCOS multimedia family, which is our uniBox. Same experience, but bringing that experience to a larger screen through HDMI and USB. But as said, today we're focusing on uniCOS core and how can it enhance hybrid meetings. So it's really about seeing every voice. I really like this sentence. it really concludes what we want to do with our platform. So how can we enhance that hybrid meeting collaboration and environment? First of all, let's talk a little bit about hybrid meeting challenges. I think we all agree by now, hybrid is the new default for everything that has to do with business to business. If there are like conversations between suppliers and buyers, a lot of those meetings happen online in the first place. So hybrid is here to stay, and every meeting room needs to adapt towards that. So this is also why we specifically worked towards our uniCOS core devices. So challenges, it's about hearing. I can't hear what's going on. The audio towards the far end is not of high quality, but also in the room. To give an example, we had an off-site meeting in a larger meeting space where we had a U-shape for a brainstorm session. Across the table from where I was sitting, there was a colleague that has a very soft voice. And throughout the day, you're in a brainstorming session, and if you can't really hear well, then it's also really tiring. So from that perspective, hearing is not only for the far end, but also in-room amplification, voice lift is important in that sense. I can't see the presentation. It's a bit of funny example, but just to let you think about the different challenges that we see. Content sharing, how do we do that in bigger spaces? And we'll talk about that as well. I travel quite a bit and I see a lot of spaces, and I'm still astonished that we still have a lot of spaces that only have one wide-shot camera, and then as a remote participant, you really look at Lego characters, basically, where you don't even have a clue on who is speaking because it's so far distant. So that's another thing that we see, and it's for us. It's also mainly about what we call line of sight issues. For bigger meeting spaces, we see a lot of architectural challenges. I would say rooms from 12 and higher is where our solutions really apply. And line of sight issues for us is bidirectional. Not only from a participant to a screen. I think we've all been in those situations. You have a long bowling alley type of meeting space. You're sitting at the end of the room, and then you start to see people wiggling around to see a certain part of the presentation on the screen. Also in those types of meeting layouts, you're also constantly looking sideways to a screen often, where at a certain point in time, next train is really causing some unpleasant situations. So by bringing a small device with the content right in front of you, you solve those types of line of sight issues. But it's actually twofold. Bidirectional line of sight issues, it's also from a camera to a participant. I think we all know if we design solutions, we don't always have the ideal positions to put cameras. And then you end up with, as a remote participant, you're looking to somebody's cheek all the time because he's also not aware which camera is focused on me. So that's also, from that perspective, line of sight issues can occur as well. So again, bringing a device right in front of a participant, you see the hybrid person that you're talking to right in front of you, so you have a more intimate conversation, a more engaging conversation because you see the person right in front of you and the camera captures you front-facing. So that's about the challenges that we see within the hybrid meeting environment. So first of all, in our hybrid meeting room, where do you see the most participant friction? Has it to do with audio quality? Is it viewing the shared content clearly? Is it line of sight challenges that you encounter while designing? Or is it ensuring the equal participation so that both in-room and remote participants are equally represented? I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer in the poll section of our platform. And while you do so, let's dive a little bit deeper in introducing uniCOS Core. When we looked at our solutions, we saw a clear need for an audio-visual application that really easily integrates into hybrid meetings such as Teams and Zoom. First of all, the uniCOS device has obviously a microphone to capture high quality audio, but also it has built-in loudspeaker. And that loudspeaker really makes a huge difference for those scenarios, bigger meeting spaces where people sit further apart, U-shaped type of applications, different rows. You want to clearly hear also the conversation in the room. So that's making a huge difference also for those types of applications. And this is all about audible equity, I would say. So making sure that the remote participant gets high quality audio from our devices, but at the same time, everybody has its personal loudspeaker mix containing the far end users, but also the mix of what's happening in the room. With that, we also changed our internals and our audio processing to really be more relevant in those informal meeting spaces. You don't want to think about, okay, I want to talk, I want to say something, I have to push a button, I have to unmute my button, I have to mute my button. So you want to have something that is more natural, right? So what we've done is we created a hands-free mode. And this is basically all microphones and loudspeakers stay active all the time. There's no need to push a button. Levels all are automatically regulated within the system. And then when you want to have a private conversation, you can still use the push to mute button in this case, to have a conversation with your neighbor and making sure that this, for instance, is not captured in a recording or goes to the far end and to the other loudspeakers in the room. So this is a huge difference in comparison, for instance, with bars and ceiling type applications where you don't have that capability. All right, so that's our hands-free mode, and that really results in a more natural conversation that can be used in those types of more brainstorm sessions and planning meetings, etc. So that's the audio part. Then obviously we also have an all-in-one station, so it has a built-in camera and it has a visual display in order to share content. We have a tiltable screen. We'll come back on that, why this is important, but in fixed meeting spaces, I would say it could be glare or it could be adjusting your camera angle so that you're nicely in picture, depending on how tall or short you are. All right, so this is really about the visual equity, making sure that everybody sees what's going on, and we also have the capability to have multiple contents being shared to the devices so a participant can choose themselves what they want to see. Now, let's say we have a room, there's a conversation going on between two persons. One person asks a question, the other one starts to answer that question. Typical scenario, camera moves to the last person, and as a remote participant, I have no clue on how the person that asked the question reacts. I don't see any non-visual, non-verbal communication. Body language is simply cut off in that sense. Now, what we can do with our devices is capture multiple persons within the meeting space and making sure that those are also transferred to remote participants. So they really clearly see the conversation that is going on in the room. So more connectivity, a more sense of what's going on into the meeting space, and also that non-verbal communication, which is so important for communication anyways. We also changed our user interface on the devices to make it really simple and focus only on what matters for those hybrid meeting type of applications. So the only thing that you have available, if you choose to have multiple video streams, is a selection of which content do I want to see. And then for multilingual meetings, choose the language that you want to hear through your headphone jack. So that's the user interface, so really modern and simplified with a main focus on the video. Now, looking a little bit further, I already mentioned that we have capabilities to have multiple streams, and that's really seeing what matters to you. So the only thing we need to do is provide the content in our system, and then each participant themselves can decide what is important for them to see at any given point in time. So whether it's a presentation or you want to select to a hybrid meeting and see the remote participants, for instance, that's all perfectly possible. Very simple to set up in comparison on how you want to do that in a traditional environment, I would say. Maybe also notice that on this device you see a smaller microphone, so we have different microphone options ranging from different lengths, single flex or a dual flex at the top end, and then also that low profile microphone for those people that do not prefer to have a gooseneck on the devices itself. So a little bit more discreet while still capturing high quality, qualitative audio. So this is really about the selection. That same approach can also be applied for more, I would say, language accessibility. So in scenarios, for instance, if you have bilingual meetings, sometimes you see that people have a Zoom call with English subtitles, but also a Zoom call, for instance, with French subtitles. So again, by providing those as an input to our systems, participants themselves can select which of those streams they want to see. Another example, obviously for people that are hard of hearing, those subtitles can also be used as a separate content stream in order to solve that, that as well. And then the last one, let's say about a sign language. If you want to have sign language applied in your room, you can also have a separate channel specifically for sign language, so that those participants that are in need of that can also select those, that content as well. So as you can see, really built for inclusivity by design, applying that video selection can help in that sense. That's a bit on the hardware side of things. Obviously, we also have software to regulate how we want to deal with the content and where does it have to be sent. Looking a little bit in the software, so at the one hand we have input devices, so this can be our video input device, which is HDMI. It can be an SDI source that is available on our multimedia device, or it can be those cameras that are integrated into the uniCOS devices. So those are the input groups. Then we have the output groups. Those are our video output devices, which have an HDMI out of our system. Then obviously you decide how do we want to connect the input to the output. So that's the routing that we foresee in the software application. And then this goes to our 6 Plixus video streams that we have available on the network. There you can define, do we want to have them as user selectable channels? As I already mentioned, switching between a presentation and a hybrid meeting, for instance, or do we want to use those channels as system channels? In this case, we route cameras outside of our system, but we don't make them selectable on the devices itself. And we'll have some examples in this section where we talk about architecture and integration. Also as an input device, so we can group all the microphones of the uniCOS devices in one logical group, and then it will basically follow the conversation and switch the cameras automatically natively in our system. That's what we call the multi-talking head group. So in this case, we say, okay, from the uniCOS devices, follow the conversation and give me the last active, 4 active persons so that I can use those in a hybrid meeting, for instance. We also have the capability to define backup channels, and that means what needs to happen if nobody is speaking on a certain channel. So this could be an overview shot of the room, for instance, and we have different applications and possibilities that we'll look into a little bit later in this webinar. So this is the software, very flexible web-based user interface where you can deal with that video routing, same as we already have for our audio routing capabilities. With that uniCOS core, we also have seen that There's a lot of interest in how we can integrate into hybrid meetings, but the cost was always a little bit too high for those, I would say, more AV hybrid focused applications. So that's also why we stripped down all that functionality, voting, agenda management, etc., to purely focus on the uniCOS core, and there is about a 30% difference between those two devices. So really targeting those hybrid meeting spaces. All right, this is about the product in itself. Maybe also a little bit a uniCOS core, uniCOS Pro, can be configured as a uniCOS core. We sometimes see that meeting spaces are being used both in more formal meeting settings, but at the same time also in informal meeting settings. So when you purchase a uniCOS Pro, you can easily switch back and forth between the uniCOS core interface and the Pro interface if there's a need to. If you purchase a uniCOS core device, this cannot be upgraded to a Pro. So that's a bit the difference there as well. And that's purely configurable in the Confero webpage as well. Next release will also have that capability to switch a Unibox into a more core application as well. All right. So that's it in terms of product. Now let's have a little bit of a deeper look into where does it apply, which applications and which references we've done already. First project we've done with the core is a project, and I will try to pronounce Sagamok Anishwabek. It's actually a community in Canada, so it's a council chamber. Here you see round table. Where do you put screens to share the content? How do you deal with camera capture? And as you can see, the Teams interface is on those uniCOS devices. So the only thing you need here, everybody has its screen. You don't have to worry about distribution, video, where do I put screens, etc. So ideal application, I would say, for a first of that new device. So that's the first one. And then the second one, I would say, is more into executive boardroom spaces. In this case, this is an investment company in Belgium, where they switched from a ceiling tile, where they were not really happy with the performance from an audio's perspective. They redid the whole room and decided to put the uniCOS core devices in there as well. So typical scenario, a little bit bigger than 12 participants, longer distance also to cross for in-room voice lift. So this is a perfect solution for those types of applications as well. You can also see glass windows at the left-hand side. So again, there, where do I put cameras? How do I deal with distribution of content, etc. So, and that's something that we see more and more. Interior design is important, but how do you integrate different AV solutions then? So this simplifies that application quite a bit. And then another example, this is a boardroom in one of the offices of our distributors. A little bit bigger, I think a 24-seater application, a little bit more Scandinavian design. So as you can see, also nice, clean look and atmosphere in the room with those applications. I would say those are a little bit more the obvious. But what we see, because the all-in-one character of our devices, is that it really suits beyond the fixed room. Very easy to integrate for more portable and flexible meeting spaces. First example there, National Institute of Health, huge campus in Washington, D.C. I visited that facility as well. A lot of meeting spaces, and since COVID, everything needs to be hybrid. They have a quite small AV team that needs to support all of that, and they were really struggling to deal with the hybrid portion. So this is an example of one of those rooms. Those are all flexible meeting spaces. So constantly it might be presentation style in the morning and then U-shape in the afternoon. But how do you deal with that from a hybrid perspective, cameras, presets, etc. Actually, they had persons that were doing the camera tracking manually. So by switching to our all-in-one stations, they have infrastructure in all the floor boxes, and they have 4 to 5 kits, I would say, with our uniCOS devices. Simple setup, daisy chaining, switch on the system, hybrid meeting, and from there on, it's hands off for the team. So this is an example of where it's being used in more flexible meeting spaces. I already mentioned that we also have a tiltable screen. So because of the fact that it tilts down, it doesn't take up a whole lot of space as well. So very easy to transport. These are standard Pelican cases, and you can see 10 of those multimedia devices can be stored in a quite compact case that can be brought from room to room, or you can use to store whenever you don't need the solution. All right, so that's one example. Another example is more for a justice department, where we have what we call a courtroom in the box. In this case, court proceedings need to be done at remote locations. So they need an AV system, it needs to be hybrid, and a judge and the staff are actually flying in, and every second counts there because they have maybe 200 cases they have to do in 2 days. So it's landing, setting up, and immediately go back to work. So what has been built there is a small case, multimedia engine from Televic, Zoom engine, and then a patch panel that has colored cabling. So the green ones, obviously Televic green, for the uniCOS devices, connection of your Zoom room in this case, a wide-angle camera so you see the whole room, and then there's multi-channel recording through our Dante interface into the recording application. So again here, 8 to 10 of those multimedia devices. It's all in one. It follows the location or position of the person. Don't have to worry about shipping screens, dealing with cameras, camera presets, etc. This is again very compact, and it's actually fitting. A whole courtroom is fitting in half a trunk of a normal sized car. So that's why we call it courtroom in a box. But there are several of those applications. We have AV teams of prime ministers that have a solution like that. So when the prime minister travels and there's a need for hybrid meetings, everything is already there. Screens, cameras, capture, an all-in-one solution with simple setup. All right, so those are a little bit the applications that we wanted to highlight. Now let's dive into the architecture and the integration of the system into hybrid meeting platforms. So first of all, brain of our system, multimedia engine, and then we have our uniCOS core or pro devices that are connected daisy chaining or looping via standard shielded Cat5 cabling. All right. You have your UC platform, whether it's Teams, Zoom, but it can be Google or WebEx as well. Have a video output box with HDMI, convert this into USB into your UC application. So this is really to bring the camera feed towards the UC application, and then the result of your hybrid meeting is injected into the system so that people can see the hybrid meeting on their screens. The video devices are obviously also part of our Plexus network, and everything is bidirectional sharing is done via that way. As I already mentioned, you can also inject multiple streams. So in this case, you could have another HDMI in, for instance, to share a presentation as well. So this is a little bit how the pieces fit together. Now, obviously for audio, you either bring Dante into your application, or you use analog to USB into your UC application as well. Now, from a software point of view, how does that work? We see the uniCOS units. That's a group that contain all the devices, all the multimedia devices. And then we say, okay, route this to a video output box that is then going to your Teams call in this case. Then the result of your UC application is the Teams input feed, where we route this to the first stream on our devices. So in this case, you have only one stream that is made available for the participants, which is the Teams call. And that results in what we call a standard hybrid integration that follows the last person that is speaking. So the conversation really switches from one person to the other. Because we have those capabilities with our multi-stream, so our 6 streams that we have available, we can go a step further. So rather than only having one camera, we can decide to have multiple video output boxes, in this case 4, HDMI to USB into your UC application. There are capabilities to do that natively, either with Teams rooms with a Pro license, or if you have a Zoom room with multi-stream capabilities. Okay? Now, how is that done from a software's point of view? Again, the group of all the uniCOS devices is shared, and we say we want to have the last 4 persons in a conversation and route those to the 4 output devices that you've seen in the diagram. And then same again, route the input from the Teams meeting or Zoom meeting into your application. In this case, we have 2 streams that users can select. It's either the hybrid meeting or the presentation that they have the capability to look at. For those conversation, we also define what needs to happen if somebody is not speaking, and then you show a backup. In this case, it's the SDI, which would be a wide shot camera angle, for instance. So you have flexibility there. This results for Teams rooms with a Pro license in a multi-window, a mosaic, I would say. For Teams, those multiple streams are only sent to the far-end users. The in-room participants don't see the visualization of the persons in the room. And then a remote participant can select what content do they want to see, or a composition of the combined streams that are made available to the Teams room. Do make sure to also have a look at how powerful your compute needs to be, but you can find that back on the Teams room's website as well. For Zoom a little bit different. For Zoom, all the participants in the room has, I would say, an equal real estate as the remote participant. So from a meeting equality point of view, a little bit a step above. And also the in-room participants are also shared to the output of the Zoom room, so that also people in the room can see the different persons speaking as well. So that's a bit the difference between the Teams and the Zoom approach, and that might change over time. So that's something to closely follow. For instance, now Teams room, the maximum is 4 there, whereas for Zoom, I think it's 6 or even more nowadays. Right? So that's how you natively integrate with those platforms. But there's also a capability. Let's say people don't want to pay extra for a Pro license, but still you want to have the multi-stream capabilities. Same concept. In this case, 3 output devices, but put it in a video mixer, a multi-window processor type of application, so in your video design. Then convert USB into your UC application, and then the result of your hybrid meeting you also bring into your video system, and then provide an input to our system to define what people in the room need to see. This gives the advantage that you can decide yourself whether it's only an in-room meeting, how do we want to deal with the content sharing and what needs to be seen, or is it a hybrid meeting? So here you have full flexibility. It's a little bit more of an integration also from our system into a hybrid meeting. So this offers also a lot of flexibility and also capabilities from that point of view. So actually for a remote participant, exactly the same approach, but you don't need the additional licenses. You do everything in terms of multi-window processing in an AV system. Then looking a little bit on the different applications or the different possibilities we can do also with the video routing application. So in this case, for instance, we still provide a Teams call so that people in the room see the Teams meeting. But we also always visualize the chairperson. So the camera of the chairperson is always active, and then we show a conversation. So in this case, we would have four people visualized from the, 3 people visualized from the room. So that's a possibility. Another possibility is that we can also have different groups of uniCOS devices. So in this case, let's say we have a VIP table and then a room, U-shape. We could define a group for the VIP table. So we put all the uniCOS devices from the VIP table in one group, all the devices from the U-shape in one group, and those are separate. So here we can define, okay, if somebody speaks on the VIP table, follow that conversation. If nobody speaks, switch back to the camera of the CEO. And then in the U-shape, we say, okay, give a conversation, so 2 people. If nobody speaks, switch to a wide shot, for instance. So you have flexibility both in priorities and fallback scenarios as well. And then the last example is the one that I already mentioned, bilingual meeting. You want to have subtitles from Zoom with English, French, maybe a sign language channel. You have the capability also to flexibly configure those in the software as well. So really very easy to set up and very straightforward. Within the application, within the video configurator, you can have multiple presets. And those presets could be, for instance, one preset for a more formal setting, one preset for a more informal setting, and how do you want to deal with that. Those presets can also be switched through API, so you have full control from an integrations point of view to play around with that as well. To finish it off, an example of a room. As you can see, beautiful room, architectural-wise quite challenging. Where do you put cameras and screens? You have the windows. Quite big, I do agree. But I think we can all agree, like the middle table, there's probably hundreds or thousands of those types of meeting spaces where it's a different approach of designing both audio, video, and how do we manage that into hybrid meetings. Just to give an example and spark some ideas from that perspective. A little bit as a conclusion to today's webinar about uniCOS Core. It's about equal audibility, high-end quality, both to AI applications for summaries, speech-to-text applications, but also to remote participants so they clearly understand what's going on. But also in the room. How can we make sure that everybody in the room is also clearly understood? Less fatigue, and it's also about clear decision-making, obviously. The equal visibility, seeing what's going on, having the choice to select what do you want to see at any given point in time, what's important for you. Making sure that we can design around accessibility, providing captions for people that are hard of hearing, sign language, etc. can also be used for that. Integration into hybrid meetings, so you have a more intimate conversation with people at the far end. You see them right in front of you. Capture is front-facing, so a different approach there as well. And obviously they are suitable for fixed, but definitely also for more mobile use cases where you have an all-in-one system, very compact, so easy to transport and to store. So this is the conclusion. One more poll question. Which outcomes matter most in executive hybrid meetings? Is it the clear audio and speech intelligibility? Is it equal visibility for remote and in-room participants? Seamless integration with the Teams and Zoom? Or is it about executive confidence and decision efficiency? Give you a couple of seconds to answer, and while you do so, we also have an action for you. So if you find this interesting and it sparks ideas, we are really interested to tell us about your meeting spaces, requirements, schedule a meeting with us to discuss. And if you say, okay, this is already really clear for me, I see a direct opportunity, scan the QR code and fill out the form to request a quote. If you do so, we will be in touch in the next coming days, and then we can have a more in-depth conversation. Also, if you have more questions, you can definitely schedule a meeting with us. That's it for today's webinar. I'm pretty sure you learned a couple of things, but there's more. By the end of May, we have another exciting webinar about simplifying interpretation for multilingual meetings, but also how does that apply into hybrid meetings? How can we bring languages to a hybrid meeting or take remote interpretation into our solutions? Very interesting one as well, May 28th, and then we'll have 2 sessions again, one 10 a.m. for CET or 4 p.m. for Singapore time, and then the afternoon session, 5 o'clock in Europe, and then 11 a.m. for North America. All right, scan the QR code and that brings you to the website where you can register for this webinar. Do Televic and yourself a favor and also follow us on our socials. There we keep you up to date about next webinars, software releases, features, reference cases. So anything Televic Conference, make sure to tune in and stay up to date. For now, I want to thank you for joining, thank you for your time, and I wish you all a very nice day. See you next time.
First, every voice matters. Secondly, it's also about enhancing decision making. Thirdly, language accessibility. And finally, it's also about customer-centric approach